Here we are, Triple T, number 52. Can you believe it? And if my background looks a little different, that's because we are on the road and heading back home. I hope everybody had an awesome holiday, considering Mother Nature decided to clean out the ice bin and share it with most of the United States. We were super blessed and lucky because when we left Texas, the weather was pretty decent, and then it got unbelievably cold for Texas while we were in Phoenix, where it was beautiful. And now we're heading back in Texas just in time for the weather to become believably beautiful again. Yay! So I guess Mother Nature and God Source went, Merry Christmas, have some nice weather. I want to thank all of you for tuning in, especially those that are also watching the recordings and watching the live broadcast. And thanks for the comments and the support. And holy cow, 52. Like 52. Like a whole year. And I've said it a number of times. I held back on doing this for almost a little over 3 years because I didn't think I would have enough content to keep this going. So thank you for your support. Because I have no idea how long I'm going to have service, I'm going to jump right into it. The topic, because this is the last Triple T of 22. And for those of you that have been around, last year, when I started this, one of the episodes was, what do you want to be in 23? Well, you can throw a rock and hit 23 now. So how are we doing on those ideas, thoughts, and changes that we had coming up? The topic that I picked for tonight is overcome, adapt, and improvise. I got that from my godfather, who was a Green Beret paratrooper, 101st Airborne, served in Vietnam. And when he came back, that was one of the things that he instilled in me was, if things aren't going your way, overcome, adapt, and improvise. Which sounds a lot like 3 solutions to every event, situation, or event that may occur in a slightly different way. So one of the ways that I was looking at it for, especially for Triple T, was who do I want to be in 23? Overcome anything that's been holding you back. Not only in 22, but since you were born. If you're over the age of 18, it's on you. You can't blame your parents, where you grew up, your friends, all the above. You're not a tree. You can live. There's so much information on the internet that's free. Communication is so easy. You can take classes in almost any language, any country, any topic. Adapt. We've talked about the difference in human beings as far as hardware issues versus software issues. Hardware, again, if this is your first time watching a recording, I'm a pro NBA basketball player superstar, and I'm 4'11". I'm not saying it's impossible, but you got some work to do. Now, on the other hand, if you want to be a computer programmer, but you can barely turn the thing on, that's a software issue. there are classes, there are videos, there's so much information accessible that you have to, so, you know, I want to learn how to play guitar. Well, that's an option. And then improvise. A lot of times people come up with all the excuses as to why they can't do something. And when you ask them what they've done to try and fix or go around those excuses, all they did was found the excuses. Well, improvise. How have you tried improvising? What have you tried so far? One of the things I taught my wife when she was city manager, she got bogged down by so many people bringing problems to her because she's a problem solver. But she already had a full schedule. Now somebody comes in and goes, "Hey, I found this problem for you. Here you go." So a phrase that I taught her was, "Great, thank you for bringing that problem to me. What three solutions have you come up with so far so that we're not duplicating efforts?" Now that doesn't mean that they get to implement them. She was still the city manager, but it empowered them with the ability to know that we hired you because you have a brain. You found an issue. Have you thought through solutions? Have you looked for solutions? Now you can bring them to me and go, "I found this problem. Here are three solutions we've come up with." And she can look at those solutions and go, "I like number two. Great idea. Let's implement that. Thanks." Bada bing, bada boom. 3-minute hiccup in her day, and she's back to work instead of a 3-hour search and hunt to try and figure out a solution. And I think that's a pretty common issue with people, not only in exterior problems, but interior problems. They know that something isn't quite right, but they don't even want to take the time to investigate what the cause could be. And yes, very many times it's difficult to be the driver and the passenger in the vehicle at the same time. And it'll be up to you to reach out, find resources, something to help you get over whatever is holding you back. And you may have to improvise. "Well, I can't afford it." Well, how do you know? "Well, it's probably expensive." "Well, what do they charge?" "I don't know." That'd be a good place to start. If they charge that much, is there a different way of payment they would be willing to take? "I don't know." Good place to start. Have you negotiated with them? Or, "I can't find a job." "Well, what job are you looking for?" "Well, I'm looking for this exact tiny little niche job that I had for a while and that I know." "Well, have you looked for any other alternatives that take the same skill sets?" No. That would be a good thing. Take what you know, break your skill sets down into categories, then start brainstorming what other professions utilize a good amount of those skill sets. I know I'm on profession 28. Ugh. Trust me, not all of them had the exact same skill sets, but a good portion of them had quite a bit of them in common. And when we do a class called Golden Path, which was brought together by William Pearl Bridges, she would have you write down all the different professions, jobs, things that you've done, passions, things that you like to do, list them out and look for that thin thread that connects them. And it won't tell you what job you're supposed to be in. It will tell you basically what department should you be working in. And I see so many people that are hanging on desperately to a job that they hate, a lifestyle they can't stand, living in a community they loathe. They don't even want to go out and be around because they're so afraid that if they let go of that, something might happen. Well, yeah, something's going to happen. But if you're just hanging on to the comfort zone because it's familiar, comfort zone is a nice, comfortable place to be, but not much grows there. So with 23 right around the corner, what can you do in those 365 days to become more in 24? And sometimes you have to project a vision out a certain distance so that you can manufacture it, reverse engineer it backwards to figure out what steps it takes to get there. Does that make sense?
Say that once more. You have to project a vision out. Is that what you said?
Yeah. If you've got a somewhat of an idea of what you would like to do, who you'd like to be in 2024, you're not sure how. If you've got 365 days of steps that you can reverse engineer to figure out how to get to that point. One thing you can start with is who has a lifestyle, a job, items, knowledge that you admire, that you would like to have. How did they get? What is it about that they have? What parts are you possibly missing? What parts do you already have? When you do an assessment of the parts that you already have, now you can assess what parts you have to add to your inventory, put into your pantry of skill sets to be able to get where they are. And you can figure out, is that a 1-year plan, a 2-year plan, a 5-year plan? But you've got 365 days to figure out who you want to be in 23 so that you can be more in 24. And do an assessment of the last 2, 5, 10 years of your life. Have you gone as far as you had hoped? Kind of like, like we're doing right now, driving cross country. A lot of roads, a lot of side roads, a lot of exits, a lot of entries. If you don't have a bit of a plan, you don't pay attention to your fuel gauge, and you don't take care of your vehicle, you may end up somewhere that you didn't really want to be in the first place. Like broken down in the middle of the desert with 2,000 acres of nothingness around. So my wish for you, and please hold me to it as well. What do you want to be? Who do you want to be at 23 so you can be more in 24? Write that out. Plan it out. If you had a client or a best friend that came to you, what advice, what information, how would you walk them through doing it? If you're having troubles doing it for yourself, reach out to other people. You want to join a BNI club, Chamber of Commerce? Do you want to get in better shape? Do you want to work on financials? Do you want to build a side hustle or two or three? It's funny how I watch certain people have no problem scheduling in the fun stuff. But when you bring up the idea of, like, you know, if you thought of a side hustle, like, oh, wow, this, that, that's a lot of work. Well, which one are you talking about? Well, I don't know. Have you looked into any of them? Well, what's a side hustle? Well, apparently you thought it was a whole lot of work. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. Some of the side hustles that I've seen are disgustingly easy. And I mean that with that exact description. And yet, it's a wide open field because, I don't know, maybe it sounds too easy. Maybe we're just too busy in our comfort zone. Maybe we're afraid that it's something new. Maybe our bank account already has too many dollars in it. We're afraid that if we put a couple more in each week, it might explode. Just check. I was watching for expressions. Didn't seem like any of you rose your hand on that one. So, if you think your bank account could accept a few more dollars each month, there are certain things that are available.
Question for you, and question for the group. Some of your favorite techniques for identity. So who do you want to be in 24, and to help identify more of literally shifting your identity and how you identify with it. Open gate.
Do you want to figure out who you are, or do you want to figure out what you already know who you want to be and you just want to lock that in?
Both.
Great question. Okay, Ray.
So from not a psychology point, I don't have a degree or anything, but from somebody that's, I don't
You
know,
have life
regular,
lessons.
not superior. Yeah, so I wouldn't want to strive to change myself per se. What I want to do is basically beat myself from the last time. It's like a scoreboard. You want to better yourself. Oh, well, that was your score last time. Let's see what we can do this time. But you know, it's all in your head. But makes for a better you, because you're advancing yourself instead of, you know, oh, you're changing your personality. No, you're recognizing what's going on with you, how other people perceive you, and you're able to shift it to be who you are comfortably, not offensively towards others, but you're making a difference for yourself, for your environment, for your work, for your relationships with others. So for me, I feel that's what's benefiting myself, and, you know, up on the scoreboard there. So
That's why I like that saying, kind of like what you said, is your main competition is the person you were yesterday. But I also want to see how far can you push yourself in 365 days? Because I've I've seen people change themselves to the point that you impressively don't recognize them anymore. They have improved themselves to a point that they basically have become a whole new person. Now, part of the stuff with that level of growth is, can your old tribe handle it? You do run the risk of losing tribe, trust box that you've been in for the last 10 years. And you have to be strong enough to let them know that, yeah, that person doesn't really exist anymore. Welcome to the new me. And if you can't handle that, I appreciate the amount of time you spent with me, but I'm not going down what I need to grow. And I've gone through this quite a bit, to be honest. If you guys knew me 15, 20 years ago, totally different. I'm still the silly me, but I've got a lot of different mindsets, thoughts, and processes, and things that I will try to think of the word. I won't put up with as much as I used to. Anybody got anything to add to that?
So
Yep. Go ahead.
basically, you know, for me and Holly were talking about this before the live. It's baby steps, and then that's the thing. It's baby steps. You're not going to notice it right away. As you're changing, you're evolving. You're going to notice that these little steps are going to add up to big things. And like for myself, I've done so many baby steps that I've actually eliminated, you know, stressful situations, drama, and people, not just friends, but also family members that are toxic and that cause stress and drama in my own life, because I'm constantly having to worry about them. And by eliminating those types of people and those types of situations, you're able to focus on yourself and you're able to move forward with those little baby steps. It's no longer, oh, well, I have to do this, or, oh, well, I have to look after this. It's, hey, I have a list. I'm going to get this done first. I'm going to get that done second. It's an progressive forward movement. It's no longer stall, wait, no, I can't do that. I have to cater to something else or someone else. You're now progressing yourself forward, which is also another baby step. But it's also the mindset you're putting yourself into is, hey, I can do this. Just like, I waited for somebody to help me fix my garbage disposal. I could have waited until the cows came home and they weren't going to do it.
Yep.
So I took the initiative. I asked TJ. TJ gave me some great advice, which I full-heartedly took, and it turned out positively and then those little steps I took boosted my self-esteem, boosted my self-worth in my own mind, and it pushes me forward. That's another change.
And there's a squirrel that just ran across the street that said, you don't have to know everything. You circle yourself with people that you can go to. You learn how to ask questions, where to find answers. They're out there. That's why I loved it when Henry Ford was being grilled by Congress, because all the other car makers were getting mad because he figured out how to do it better. And they said, well, what's the compression ratio on your motor? And he's like, I don't know. You don't know? He goes, I don't have to know that. I know who to ask to do it. I circle myself with people that do that for me. Just like when Einstein was asked what his phone number was. He said, well, where's the phone book? And they were like, do you not know your phone number? He goes, I use my brain for other stuff. I know where to look it up. So where are you going to look? Who are you going to ask? Who are you going to surround yourself with? Who are you going to add to your tribe to make it better? Who are you going to subtract from your tribe? Now, that doesn't mean that you cut them completely out of your life. Sometimes you have to, but as I've explained to a number of my clients and students, you are the king or queen of your kingdom. And it doesn't matter if they are blood family or if they've known you since you were born. You still get to decide, are they allowed to be on the kingdom or not? Are they allowed to, only you get to decide, are they allowed inside of the city walls? Only you get to decide, do they get to come into the castle? Are they allowed in the great room? Are they allowed to sit at the head table? Are they allowed into the private areas of the castle to see the view from the top vista? And you are the only one that gets to decide whether or not they get to find the bedchamber. And again, it doesn't matter if they're blood family, that, brother, sister, whatever. If they're toxic, yeah, you can come into the city walls, don't break anything, but you're not allowed in the castle. If you start a fight, you're outside the city walls, and if you do it enough times, I may kick you out of the kingdom. Because in the end, you have to take care of you, just like we all know how they say it on the airlines. If the oxygen mask drops, you put it on yourself first. And as much as I don't like the whole oh, it's January 1st. This is when we should all change our lives and make the resolutions to improve our. How about Tuesday? How about March? How about yesterday? That I've said it before a couple of times. All of the people who religiously go to the, the, the gyms and the fitness clubs all year, what 6 weeks do they absolutely hate every single year? January 1st till about February 15th. Because their nice little gym all of a sudden increases in population by 40-fold. And God bless them, like, oh, I'm gonna get in shape. But very few of them have drilled down to their values and criteria. Many don't know how to or why. They just know that they should go to the gym, and after about 3, 4, 5 weeks, they just kind of dwindle off. And the people that have been there for the last 4 or 5 years get their lovely gym back. And maybe they've gained a couple of newbies, but not as much as it could be, should be, would be. And I think it goes the same for mental health and building your skill sets, your value to the marketplace. I love when Jim Rohn said, you don't get paid for the hour you spend at work. If that was the case, everybody would be rich because all you'd have to do is find a place to pay you and show up for an hour. You get paid for the value you bring to the marketplace. And too many people get that one job and they don't strive to continue to increase their marketability. They don't bring anything new to the job site. They don't gather any additional skill sets. Very common in network marketing realm, the saying, you make a living 9 to 5 and you build your fortune 5 to 9. But too many people from 5 to 9, that's when they come home, crack a cold one, turn on the TV, catch on the latest mind value, and grab a bite to eat, wash, rinse, repeat. They do it 365 days and call it a year. We call it a living. And then 10 years later down the line, they can't figure out why nothing's changed and they're bored. And that crazy person from across the street who was doing night school and didn't know what the score was on the game most of the time, all of a sudden got 3 promotions and their income has doubled. So how are we doing so far? I know I'm rolling right across because I'm I'm on the road. I don't have any notes. I'm just that I shut off my video because I don't know what we've got for signal, and it's a little darkish out here. Any ahas, epiphanies, things anybody'd like to share? Oh, here's one for you. when you're on the freeway of life, sometimes people will block you in the passing lane. And it gets a little frustrating. It's kind of like at work, you're like that person that is in front of you or holding you back from getting that promotion or something. Well, sometimes it takes a little time for them to get out the way, get out the way. And you have to keep track of also who's behind you. And can you do the same for them and allow them to advance, knowing that you've still got a long ways to go. And maybe they could show you a pathway or clear out obstructions in front of you, like the cop that would have held you back for going faster than you were supposed to. So, what else we got? Like I said, I don't know how much time we're going to have. With me tonight because but here's a couple of quotes that then becomes a disease. Jim Rohn. As always, I read them twice. So again, neglect starts out as an infection, then becomes a disease. Keep a close eye on what's going on in your life, where you're at. Find a accountability partner. Get in with groups that will help you grow, push you, allow you to become more than you thought you were capable of. Another quote is, action may not always bring happiness, but there is no happiness without action. Benjamin Disraeli. Read that again. Action may not always bring happiness, but there is no happiness without action.
My God, is that a good one or what? Good heavens.
Like that one?
That was a really good one and quite accurate.
Good. Yeah. Goes right back to the dog on the porch with the nail. For those of you that are watching the recording and didn't catch the live one, it's a story about a young businessman and goes to see Grandpa way out in the sticks. They're sitting out on the front deck sipping some tea, and the old dog is sitting on the edge of the deck. He's just got that warm. The kid's like, "Hey, Grandpa, what's wrong with the dog?" Grandpa says, "Well, I reckon he's sitting on that nail."
Don't know if we've lost TJ for a second there.
I think we did.
Somebody want to finish the story he was telling for those online who were watching?
I know that the dog was sitting on a nail, but he won't get up, right? He just deals with it.
Yep,
Okay.
basically.
Kind of reminds me of a frog.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes,
We can. It's a Verizon commercial.
Yes. Can you hear me now? Yes, I heard the comment. Yeah, the kid goes, "Well, why doesn't he just get off the nail?" And Grandpa says, "Well, I reckon it doesn't hurt enough yet."
It kind of
so
goes
many
back.
people. Go ahead.
Sorry. It goes back to the one that you said last week with John C. Maxwell about tolerating four different ways of change. Like you can no longer tolerate it. Do you remember the quote? I have it somewhere.
I do, but not enough to pull it off the top of my head right now. But yes, four different ways that people will change. One is
When it hurts enough, when they
Yep.
see enough that they're inspired, when they learn enough that they want to, and when they receive enough that they're able to.
correct. Yes. And so what's it going to take to change in the next 365? Out of those four, you can look at those and decide, what do you need? And again, take that out 365 days, reverse engineer it. What can you do in 1 month? What can you do in 3 months? Where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself? What's your goal for 6 months? What's a goal for 9 months? Keep yourself on track. Who are you going to share this with? Who's your accountability partner? Where are the resources that you're going to need to find to get those changes done? By the way, I've got a whole bunch of notes for Triple T 53, which will be the start to 23. Isn't that ironic? Triple T 53 and 23. And so get a bunch of people on that one. We're going to rock the New Year's out in big change style. Again, I'm not sure how long this coverage is going to last. I already lost you guys once. But if I pop out, take over. I'm so proud of all of you guys on this call. I truly mean that. What you bring to this call, what you make me want to be, helps me to grow. And I got to be honest when I say I feel a good pressure each week to try to come up with content, inspiration, if you will, so that I can somehow, some way enhance somebody's day, life, week out there. And I appreciate you giving me the platform to do it.
You already do. This is why we keep showing up and why we watch the reruns.
Looks like I'm getting into sketchy area again. We'll see how you guys have any questions or topics that you would like me to talk about, go over, do one more time on this last Triple T of 22, 52 and 22. Look at that.
Do you guys have another protocol other than the silos? You know, the silo one that I'm talking about. I know Holly actually ran me through a silo one way back in 2020. Or even when you take on different personas, is that silos or is that
Talk about DTI?
Yes.
Deep trans identification.
Yes. Thank you. Clearly, I need to rehearse this one.
It bumped me out just long enough to come back in and hear DTI.
Yeah, that's the one. I don't know. I'm blanking on any protocol for deep trance identification, and I was wondering, other than silos, or maybe I'm just doing silos wrong, or was it a circle where you go around the circle? Anybody? Am I just making shit up?
I could take over for a second if I know TJ knows it, but if he's not in the most reliable service at the moment.
Okay.
So first of all, I'd say if you want to look for something different, just talking about, TJ's masks and the different ingredients we put together is definitely very useful. I found kind of a different way to do it. But basically what you do is, so first of all, you're looking for specifically what kind of person you want to be, obviously.
Okay.
But then what you want to do is think of somebody, and it could be real, it could be imagined, whatever the case may be, who embodies the traits that you want to take on.
Okay.
And then what you do is, so at least the way David does it, David Snyder does it with a magic circle, is he'll actually even maybe bring up avatars of all of the different people that he wants to work with. So the way I do it, which I may have adapted it, sometimes I learn it and then I do my little thing and I forget the original way. So I apologize. Correct me on the way to do it. So first of all, you need to make sure when you're doing deep trance identification with someone that you are putting in filters. Because if you go up to that person and connect with them, you may get not just their good traits, but also some of the traits that
they're not so good traits. Yeah.
And it could be health issues. It may, mental health issues, but it can also be physical health issues. I think there's a story about.
Yeah, Elijah usually tells it. Aaron, I think he knows it off the top of his head. With he did deep trance identification and he ended up paralyzed. Yeah.
So that, but then you also have to remember too that the things you're filtering out may also have contributed to that person's ability to do what they do. So for example, if somebody is paralyzed and that's what gave them an incredible motivation in life, you got to keep that in mind as well. Anyway, so what you do
Thank you, Aaron.
Yes, Aaron, with Milton Erickson, right? I couldn't think of his name. I'm like, the guy, the NLP guy.
That guy!
So you bring their avatar up, and then what you do is you ask if you can connect with them. You ask for permission, and then when they give you permission, you turn around and you step inside of them.
Okay.
And then you experience everything that you want to experience, and you take the lessons, the skills, everything you want, the personality traits, lock them in, and with your own copy, step out, turn back, and basically thank the avatar for giving it to you.
Okay. Thank you for pointing out the other one of the get on the good stuff. What
and then
about
also, I was gonna say, I also, with stuff I add to it, like for instance, I did Norma Jean Baker for a little bit.
cool.
Norma Jean, anyway. And I had to make sure I put in filters, but I also went out and I watched a bunch of documentaries about her. I read a bunch of books about her, so that when I'm bringing up her avatar, my knowledge of her avatar is the best it can possibly be.
Okay.
And then also making sure, as we talk about with state, making sure you're breathing the way they breathe, you're standing the way they stand. So as TJ mentions with with the ingredients, when you don't just describe the person, you actually have to inhabit who they are. Show me the way they talk.
Yeah.
Show me the way they walk.
Yeah.
So anyway, big
what if no, that's been phenomenal explanation. What about, and Aaron, I think this came up in another class. Like if it's a person that you want to be in 24, or like the version of you that you're working toward, to go back and forth with that, would you embody it the same way? Basically, right?
Guess I'll keep going. You absolutely could.
Okay.
What I would usually do is I would even so future pace it.
Okay.
So jump forward to 2024 and then look in 2020 at the end of 2024. So go to December 31st, 2024.
Okay.
And look back at the path that brought you there and then look around at your life and say, is this the life I want to have?
Okay.
And if it's not, you have the right to go back and tweak the path
Okay.
so that you do become the person you're supposed to be.
Okay.
And then, so I would first do that check to make sure it's who you really want to be before I
Okay.
would use their avatar and step into them. And so, yeah, it can be very powerful.
Yeah.
Just make sure
Okay.
you're going where you actually want to go. If that makes sense.
Gotcha. I like that you pointed out, check the path. That reminded me of something else, because I think TJ had mentioned that. Like, land down, look around. What do you need to change about it?
Yep. See what
Okay.
you see, hear what you
There
hear,
you go.
taste and smell what you taste and smell. The other thing that I want to add to that,
Uh-huh.
and I am so impressed because you guys are dead on, got all this right on. The thing that I love is when I'm teaching Identity Management University, is when I have somebody who we've gone through the steps and they've written down the traits, and the people, like Holly pointed out, it can be real or fictitious, alive or dead. If you can describe them, and then if you can act who they are, you already have the ingredients in your pantry. You already have the stuff that you need to do that. The difference is you have to decide, is this a temporary, episodical mask that I'm going to put on? Or is this going to be my primary now? And if it's going to be your primary, then that's who you become. And it becomes frameworks. Because the people that have known you for 20 years and you show up and now you talk a little different, you got a little different swagger in your walk, you know, act a little differently, and they're going to be like, what's with you? And you hold it. And yes, there's probably going to be a couple of people that are going to not accept it. And you'll still have the ability to wear. That's why I use the metaphor of masks, because we all have different personalities. I don't care. I've had arguments with people. I'm always the same. I'm like, really? No, I've seen you in the club at 1 a.m. on Saturday night. I've also seen you in the meeting room at work on Tuesday morning. That is not the same person. So we have multiple personalities. We have multiple masks. You get to decide, what am I going to add, or do I have to completely construct a new mask? When you look at if there was a very successful business person that you loved their ethics, their model, their all the above, you know, they've got all this money, and yet they drive a decent, well, what I'm going to call a fairly normal vehicle. Well, then you figure out, where did they come from? How did they get there? What did they add? What do they have that I don't have? What skill sets do they have? And those are little things that you add to your mask. And if part of what you like about them is the fact that they love to have fun. I mean, they're the people that come into a room and the room could be full of zombies, and they show up and sprinkle their glitter of light around the room, and all of a sudden everybody's happy and it's a party. well, what does that persona look like? And if that means you have to add a disco ball and Elvis glasses to your mask, do it. Try it on. Wear it for a while. And like Holly pointed out, get someone to help you do some future pacing and see if it gets you where you want to be in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years. You'd be amazed at what you'll see. And like Holly pointed out, if you're like, whoa, yeah, that didn't quite mix with some of the stuff that I had from my other masks, then go back and tweak it. But for those of us that don't want to be the same person we've been for the last 365 years, what are you going to do to improve and change? Who are you going to reach out for help to do that? What are you going to research? Are you actually going to put in the work? Do you have an accountability partner to hold your feet to the coals when you start chasing squirrels or see that lazy boy that's been holding your butt from 5 to 9 for the last 10 years? What else can you do? Can you change your environment? Well, if that's restrictive to a point, you can still change your environment. Go to Home Depot or Lowe's, and if you can't afford a $40 gallon of paint, they have oopsie paint. Pick a wall in your humble abode and make a change in it. Oopsie paint at Home Depot is $9 a gallon. Or if you want to try something new, invest some money into something like Discovery Plus and watch The Craftsman, where in one episode he teaches kids how to make their own homemade paint for $7 a gallon. Yeah. By the way, you guys can just chime in because I can't. Video is a little choppy out here.
Giving me more ideas to start doing stuff to the apartment. Stop that.
Give me a reason to. You're in the wrong department if you don't want to change. Welcome to the land of challenge and change.
See, but having change in your life and doing things differently for yourself and for the people around you that contribute positively to making you a better person, that's the beauty. That's the
Yes.
growth, is being able to recognize it, see it, and just engulf it, just be glory in it, and being able to like, oh my gosh, I did that. And I feel so good about myself, and to go on to what you were saying about how we're different masks. I honestly think we're more like clay, we're different types of color of clay. You push it together, you make your different form of who you are, or adding to yourself, and to do the different patterns of being able to step into somebody else. I actually think that, we take those little pieces of that person and that we value, that we covet, and apply it to ourselves, but we got to be able to make it fit for us. Otherwise it doesn't work. You're just becoming somebody else and you're losing yourself completely, I think. you're not embracing yourself to be able to change, to be able to move forward, to grow, to become that beautiful plant or anything, flower, to shine and, but involving in other people, like taking somebody's giggle, for instance, and you're not mimicking the sound, you're feeling the heart and the soul and the feeling of being happy, or that, that little, how do you explain it? Do you ever just get so happy or so giggly that you get that little tinge in your heart and your chest, and you just, all the adrenaline rushes through your body, and then you feel like you're just so happy. And
Yes, that's why recordings of babies giggling the way they do have actually been used as antidepressants, because the energy in that sound is, and that's why so many people love videos of babies, puppies, and kittens, because you look at that and yeah, it's a good test. If somebody doesn't smile when they hear one of those, there was a video of the lady who had like 4 or 5, she had quadruplets or something like that, and dad would do something and they're all laying around mom, and all 4 or 5 of the babies would giggle at the same time. If you've got somebody who can watch that and not smile, they need help. Or you need to run away because they're probably trying to figure out how to blow up the world. Just saying.
that's why romantic and happy movies always make me cry.
Oh yes, and I have no problems, but we'll be watching a sappy rom-com and something will be up there, and my wife knows, she'll look over at me and I'm looking straight ahead. I can feel the pressure of her. I know she's looking at me, big old gator tears rolling down my cheeks. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I got it. It got me. Okay. I'm a toughie. But one more thing I wanted to throw up here quick. I know that my first hour is up, but in 23, speak to more people. Speak to more strangers. My wife was out hiking. We spent winter in Phoenix, and she was out hiking and met um, Flatiron Jim, who hikes every day. Blonde hair, supremely blue eyes. I didn't get to meet him, but yeah, he's hiking every day, 91 years old. And he also hiked a rather challenging part of the Grand Canyon, because my wife hiked the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim. And he goes, yeah, I did a hike there. I did this one section, and I was a little winded at the end there. Yeah. Of course, I was younger when I did it. I was 85. 85. He got a little winded hiking this section of the Grand Canyon. Well, hey. I love it when you meet people like that. If you guys want to see something, really cool place, you can look it up online. It was Oregon Stop Pizza. and in Phoenix, Arizona, and they have, according to their site, they have the largest pipe organ in the world, and they don't charge anything extra for the show. The pizza is a little more expensive than the cheap stuff. Really good pizza, surprisingly good. I will kudos to that. But this pipe organ, oh my goodness gracious. Start looking for adventures in your backyard. And while we were there, of course, my wife knows I can start a conversation with pretty much anybody, and found out that the table next to us, they were from Minnesota. Had a little chat with them. The first time we went out hiking, I went with her, and while we were just about to get on the trailhead, a family comes off, and we got to chit-chatting, and the husband grew up in basically what I call my hometown. Moved away from there when he was 5, but again, small world, and people were like, wow, small world. I said, it happens to me all the time. But I will talk to anybody and everybody because I'm interested. And if you haven't already studied Chinese facial reading, please do. It is one of the easiest ways to strike up a conversation. And if when done properly, will leave them feeling better than when you met them. There were probably 4 or 5 people on this trip alone where just a certain feature popped out. And I was like, could I ask you one of the craziest questions you probably had in a bit? They're like, what? Yeah, I studied Chinese facial reading, teach it a little bit. And one of them, we went to this light show put on by Hallmark light maze in a stadium. It had vendors all around it. One lady was manning a candle booth. Her mother owns the business. And her features, I was like, same thing. Excuse me, can I ask you probably the craziest question you've had for a while? And by the time we got done, she goes, this has probably been the best conversation I've had in a month. Like, well, you're welcome. And hopefully she's going to watch the recording of this. She'll know I was talking about it. And it was a pleasure meeting her as well. Great conversation. It's amazing how easy it is to talk to people, especially in this day and age with the whole social media action going on. I think people are getting more and more hungry for human interaction, but they're getting more and more awkward at it. And the less awkward and the more skilled we can get at creating a safe environment for conversation, people will just open up because they've been looking for some type of, hi, Fred. They've been looking for some type of connection that isn't through social media I'm so thankful for this technology to be able to have, you guys on this from all over the planet. And Fran, I don't know if you realize how much your comment impacted me the other week when you reaffirmed that Triple T is global, it's international. And with this technology, it's so easy that sometimes it just seems I forget it. We're all friends. It's almost like we're all in the same room, and then all of a sudden I have to remember, oh yeah, some are on the East Coast, some are on the West Coast, some are on the other side of the planet. And here we are sharing knowledge and ideas and thoughts and supporting each other. And it really chokes me up sometimes. So again, thank you guys. And now I'm 11 minutes into your hour. So what would you guys like to talk about, or any topics you would like to bring up for our second hour of the final Triple T of 22?
Before we got to, huh? Oh, I'm sorry. I know people can't see me, so they don't know when I'm about to speak. But before we got too far away from it, I wanted to throw in a couple of other identity installation or modification techniques, because there is one which I think is called the garden, but there is two techniques which are called the garden. But this is the garden which has the statues. I won't go into the full technique, but if people want to know, then I'm sure they can find out.
Yep.
But if there's things that you are doing too much of, or that you're not doing enough of, and you need to sort of rebalance, then the statues technique or method is good for that. And you could also just, if you were in a situation where you wanted to, there was a situation or a thing that you're going into and you needed to be in the right state, and it'd be the kind of time where you would normally do a power pose or something, you could just color breathe the energy of that identity and that personality that you want to have in that moment that's coming up, and allow a few minutes for that to kind of settle in and lock in, and then move into the that thing that you want to do or need to do with that energy. So a couple of extra ideas there.
Aaron, those ideas that you were mentioning, the garden, the statues, do you remember where they were from? Are you talking like Kenrick Cleveland or David Snyder, or?
It's one that David does.
Okay.
But
I've heard of the statues before. I've just like
there's one there's a video on his channel which I think is called the Iron Man induction, which I think does demonstrate that. But the key thing with it is the battery pack metaphor, and I'm not sure whether he does that in that video or not. But
thank you.
Effectively, you find you go through the in a trance, of course, you go through a garden which has statues which sort of represent all of your different personalities or abilities and things like that, and you see that they each have essentially a battery pack or an amount of charge to them, and you reportion those the energy that each of those statues has. So you sort of train yourself to say, no, I'm doing this too much, put the energy from that into doing this other thing so I can do that more often.
Thank you.
And I can go over those. I don't know if you guys can hear me. We dropped out again. But yeah, the one that Aaron just described, that's Dr. David technique.
It's coming back to me now. It's like circa 2012, I think. It's in the archives for sure. When he said the Iron Man one, it popped up in my brain going, oh yeah, I did actually send that to somebody years ago going, hey, here's the garden that you're looking for.
And ironically, the other garden is the one that I teach for relationships.
Yeah.
And couldn't come up with a better title for it, because you're actually in a garden.
So appropriate though. There's lots of reasons to pop into a garden.
Well, it has the title of Relationships Garden now, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, I had to make sure that it had that in there.
The Love Garden.
Even better.
So what else do we want to talk about in our last 45 minutes of episode 52?
I kind of know it's kind of off topic, but I'd like to know how everybody's Christmas went. How'd you spend your time with your families, and what kind of traditions did you do? And I like learning about people, so
Mine was very nice, Ray. How was yours?
it's very good. I've got my little guy right here with me. He hasn't been feeling well, so but we got to spend some time together before I had to go to work. I had to do 4 nights, so and we had our Christmas a little early. We did a Mario Castle gingerbread house, and yeah, he did it all by himself. And
Right on.
we had our Christmas tree, and yeah, we had cuddle time, and yeah, that was our Christmas. How was your Christmas?
But when you brought that up, what it reminded me of was how different Christmases were when I was a kid. And Grandma was the matriarch, and she had this house that seemed large when I was a child. And now that I went back there probably 3 years ago now, and it's just a ranch style 3-bed, 1 bath with a basement that has a bathroom. It was finished until the flood, but we would pack in 80 pounds of sugar into a 10-pound bag because there'd be like 4 families that would all converge on this little ranch house. And 3 to 4, 3 people to a bed, and on the couch, and on the floor, and on the other floors. And her kitchen, which I used to think was big, I have no idea how that much food was made in that small of a location, and how that many people were fed in that tiny of a place. And I don't know how long it's been since I've been to an event with that many families all together. So, kind of a reflection there.
One thing I'd like to discuss or tackle is, letting go of all of the mistakes from this year, all the things I wish I could have done better, and focusing on how maybe if I was faced with the same situation again, I could remember to do it better. Anybody got any wonderful techniques for letting go of the old and welcoming in the new?
I always thought that, on the New Year part, I would say basically just not just the New Year, just all the way around. If you don't focus on your past, even if it's 5 minutes ago, don't focus on it. Focus on what you can do next. Focus on what's to come. That's what really changes, not focusing on the past, because then if you focus on your past, you're constantly it's like a cauldron. It's going to completely constantly bubble oil over, and you're constantly having to clean up that mess. And it's like, oh, it's like that robot. I don't know if you guys remember that art installation of that robot that over a certain amount of years, it didn't run off of the oil that it kept spilling. It ran off of electricity and didn't know that it ran off electricity. It thought it ran off of the oil. So every time the oil that it would spurt out, it would constantly try to push it back towards its center to keep itself alive. And it worked itself and it worked itself, and the machine died, having exhausted itself trying to keep that oil problems or past anything to itself and not work through it. And it wore itself out and it died. If you constantly are trying to think about the past and think about what you're trying to do about the past, and you're going to wear yourself out. If you look to the future, you're going to think, oh, it's a bright new day. There's something I can do to make my day better. But if and you're thinking too far ahead, you could overwhelm yourself. Don't think too far ahead. Think of what you can do now, in this moment, in this time, and you'll be able to move forward a lot better, and a lot just in a way to make change in a positive and reinforcing way that will stick, that will be permanent, that will benefit you, instead of focusing on past and, oh my goodness, 10 years from now, where am I going to be? No, if you focus that far ahead, you're never going to realize what's going on now to be able to change.
Mike.
Better?
Yeah.
Hey, look at that. When you had said about letting the past go, do you mean on like a day to day? So the reason I ask, because there were times where I would get to the end of my day and I would be upset that it wasn't absolutely perfect and that I didn't do this and I could have done that. And so the critical voice was on quite a bit higher. And I think it was TJ who pointed out to me that I would take the goalpost and I would move it constantly. So I was never actually meeting it. So I'm not too sure which one, or are you talking about like a situation that occurred and the best that came from it?
So even if it's the far past, let's say, you had a tiff with your best friend 10 years ago, but you're constantly pounding on it to make yourself better, but you're not really making yourself better. You're actually holding yourself back. Now, taking it small steps at a time and being able to move yourself forward on a day-to-day, if you resolve the issues that you have in your mind every single day, okay, this is what I did. I could have done this better this way. Okay, I can do that next time. All right. You've now got it stored in the back of your mind. You know for next time, because that little bell is going to ring the next time something happens. It's going to be like, oh, I can do this better. Let me switch up this tactic, this approach, you're going to think about it because it's stored into your mind that you're going to want to reactivate it.
it's actually that reactivation, exactly, you're spot on there, that tripped me up again. It's the surprises, the things that you weren't looking for, that suddenly, oops, here I am, it's happening again. I'm particularly thinking about meeting somebody on the beach, total stranger, and circumstances sort of went funny and she started getting really angry with me. And it kind of linked back to another time, way, way back. And, you know, all these things. And because it immediately brought up huge emotion and surprise and shock in me, I started, you know, I lost all my focus of, I know how to deal with this. And I just went straight back into the emotion and anger and all the other uncontrolled reactions. I'd like to be able to not be triggered by those again, which means I've got to address the sort of stored trauma that I didn't even realize was there. And just so if I'm faced with a similar situation again, it doesn't sort of smack me in the face and I'm in the middle of it before I realized, oh, I could have handled this so much better. That's one of the things that I particularly like to get a handle on. And with skilled hypno people, give it to me.
Before I lose reception again, one thing that you pointed out a couple of things. One, the lessons that were inside of them. You flashed back to this happened before, and I remembered this part. The thing that I told my clients is you can't change history, but what you can do is take the lessons that were given to you inside of that event. You have to hang on to them and let go of the feces. Let go of all of the schmutz that isn't helping you. One of my favorite sayings for that is, you did the best that you could at the time with the tools, the energy, and the knowledge that you had available to you. If you could have done better, you would have. So when you look back at those two events and the energy that was opened up, I don't really like the word triggered. It was stored energy that was similar. And as soon as you felt it, you went right back to that old recording and went, where have I felt this before? Oh yes, that one time back then when this happened. And if there are different ways to change it. Now, without diving into all of the details about what happened, sometimes for people, it's a phrase or a certain words that were said to them. And when I dive down into the words and unpack them, we find out that it wasn't the words. It was the energy we recorded it with. Because I've had some people who have been in very abusive relationships and had some of the most vicious, vile things said to them. And what I will do then is I'll say, okay, I want you to go back. I want you to pull up that recording. And I want you to play it back and say it to me, say the words that they said to you exactly the way you recorded it. The same tonality, the same volume, the same everything. And I'll remind you, you've already survived it. The fact that we're talking right now means that you've survived 100% of everything life has ever thrown at you. There's nothing from your past that you are not stronger than. So now I want you to go back and I want you to say what you heard exactly the way you heard it. And they'll say something to me, and if it doesn't feel to me like there was enough energy in it, I will push them until they are screaming. And it will be nasty, vile things that should never be said to another human being, much less somebody close to you. I say, good. Close your eyes. What color energy is in that? And they'll list off a color. And I'm like, okay, now I want you to say those exact same words, but I want you to use the voice of Mickey Mouse. They're like, what? Hey, I think you're sometimes they'll say it with a grin on their face like that. I'll go, okay, close your eyes. What color energy is in that? Blue. Good. Now I want you to do it in the voice of Minnie Mouse. They're like, what? But, you know, kind of the same, but squeakier. I think you're. And they're like, I go, what color energy's in that? They're like, pink. I'm like, now I want you to do it. They say the exact same words using the voice of Goofy. They're like, what? Like, you know, well, I think you're and they'll actually say these vicious, vile, nasty words while giggling. They're like, okay, what color energy was in that? And they're like, lollipop? I'm like, yes. It wasn't the words. It was the energy that you recorded in the words, and you just re-edited the energy 3 different times. You have the ability to go back and edit, take the lesson out of it, because that's the most important part.
Very
Then
good.
re-edit it for a way that you can handle it.
And the energy is the bit that was shocking. Is there any way to inoculate yourself against surprises, unpleasant surprises that completely make you forget everything you know?
Remind yourself that, remind both your conscious and your conscious of where your lesson box is, where you store your lessons, so that when stuff like that pops up, you've already survived it once. If you've survived it once, you're strong enough to survive it again. How did you survive it last time? And if your subconscious and your conscious both work together immediately, go right to your lesson box and go, oh yeah, that was back in da-da-da, we did this, you know, we made it. And you can even enhance to it, because there's plenty of us that go, you know, how many times have we gone over the scenario and go, man, I wish I would have said this. Oh, I wish I would have done this. Well, put all of those into your lesson box, so that the next time it pops up, now you've got 17 different lessons, alternative scenarios, different endings that you can add to that script and go, I write the script. I am the lead, I am the producer, I'm the editor, I'm the star. This is my movie. And in my movie, the next time this scene shows up, I'm going to do this and this and this. And if it doesn't turn out exactly the way I rehearsed it, more lessons. I did fine, I survived. Next scene. Anybody else want to chime in on that? I wanted to get that out before I ended up out and
You know,
lost in the ether again.
to go off of what Fran was talking about, I've gone through so many situations that I've had to remind myself, and it was lessons learned for me. And so then I recognize the feeling, and I recognize the pattern of behavior, of reactions to what's going on in front of me. And that's it. It's not going to happen overnight. Trust me, it's not. You got to be able to work through what you're thinking, what you're feeling in that moment of that situation. If you don't go through it, and I'm not saying, beat the dead horse, but you're going to have to recognize those feelings. Okay, I was this way, I felt this way in that moment, and it didn't work out so well the way I reacted. So what kind of reaction do I want? If I'd pay, I learned throughout the years that if I paid attention to the person that I'm talking to and how they're reacting, I can change the outcome of what's going on in front of me to be able to steer the situation into a different way that becomes either more positive or resolute. So I can find the resolution to the problem that we were getting to. Instead of letting it escalate, I de-escalated it.
Good answer.
I wanted to throw in, because TJ pretty much covered everything I was going to say except for one part. Fran and anyone else who might be hearing my voice, stop calling it a stored trauma.
Thank you.
And ask yourself now, what's a better label for the things that are stored in your brain? Won't you?
Lollipops?
Sweet treats?
And one is back to part of what I added or was saying there. They're recordings. The cool thing and the bad thing about them, it is a double-edged sword. Our memories, we have been proven, our memories are not really our memories. You have 10 people witness an event, all from the same angle. Separate them into different rooms, ask all 10 people what they saw. You're probably going to get 9 different stories at best. 5 years later, you bring the same 10 people into separate rooms, ask them what they remember, and you get 10 different stories again. Because every time they bring it up, something gets a little different, a little embellished. And when we're bringing up these memories of, oh, this trauma or this thing, this trigger or something, and I've even had clients where I've taken them back in and done regression. They're like, oh, it didn't quite happen that way now that I'm back there now. Well, if our memories aren't our memories, why don't we just change them to serve us? Let's go back, re-edit them into something useful. Again, where I say, take out the lesson, re-edit the schmutz, clean it up, put the lessons in a place where we know that we can access them quickly, easily, whenever we need to, and go forward. And yes, we're still going to probably we know we're going to have challenges, but the fact that we made it this far with 100% success rate
So,
means, go ahead.
so the Jack in the Box surprise aspect,
Yep.
amygdala hijack, it's how do you transform that into what you want the fastest way?
Squirrel. One thing that I've done to condition people on this is, if you take the analogy of a professional boxer or an MMA fighter, they get hit pretty hard in the ring, right? If somebody sucker punched them with that same intensity out in public, probably going to take them out. Most of us walk through life like the fighter who doesn't expect to get hit. And when we get hit, it hurts big time. Like, holy cow, I didn't see that one coming. And yet, those guys, you have to surprise them pretty good to catch them off guard. With where I'm going with this, even like with you, you've been in the ring, you got that hit. You can reflect on it now. Was it an uppercut? Was it? And even if you get hit that hard again, you reflect back. Have I survived this type of a hit before? Yes, I have. How did it come at me? You analyze it and go, oh, yes. And you immediately tell yourself, I've survived this before. The worst is already over. I will survive it again. But next time, when I see that flinch coming, I know which way to duck.
And Fran, when you walk onto an emergency scene, aren't there a lot of surprises there?
Yes, and I can do it then because I've got my routine sorted there. I know first I do this, then I do this, then I do the other, and then I can operate. But when it's a total sucker punch surprise, I lose the plot. And I don't remember that first you do this, then you do that. And, it's all fantastically valuable information, especially the worst is already over. Yeah,
Yes.
thanks.
Can you rehearse it? Just like you trained to go into those other places, or even kind of expose yourself in smaller amounts to it so that you get used to it, and that way you know how to manage yourself differently, possibly.
Good plan. Yeah, that works. Yeah. Certainly makes it a lot easier.
You could have any of us take you into regression in, like, I like to do the hologram deck, where you could replay the recording, but visualize, watch it from the outside, see the dynamics, feel the energy. Where did the energy top? Where did it start? And that would be another way of gaining more lessons, more insights as to how did this happen? How did I react? Rewind the tape. What if I would have done this? Rewind the tape. What if I would have done that? Extract the lessons. And then again, realize you've survived it. The worst is over. if all you walked away with was some less than positive energy, dig inside of it, find the lessons, shake the rest of it off. That's why I love watching dogs that have that amazing ability. They can get into the worst scrap ever. And as long as they're not like physically injured, they go off and they shake off the energy. And they're like, okay, now what are we going to do? So
I got a couple things. I don't know if they'll even relate at all, but first of all, I'm a big fan of doing custom gray rooms. And for those of you, sure, so some of you know Allegra, she came up with a really cool thing that she put in the gray room that I now use all the time, where she put a special crystal vial at the bottom of the fire, that as you threw everything in the fire, any lessons would then go to the crystal, and then you could take all the lessons at the beginning. So for instance, I might do a New Year's, I mean, once again, doesn't have to be New Year's to do something special, but to celebrate New Year's or a birthday or whatever, you can do a special gray room that's just custom designed to do everything that happened in the last year. And of course, the other thing I always love with gray rooms is making sure I do equal time with the less than positive and the positive, to remind myself that, yeah, sure, there's some things that I could do better, but look at all the things I got right. Look at all the things that I did great. So, and then the other thing that's kind of coming up is just because I'm also dealing with some stuff too, that remembering that there's an optimal place for productivity. And they say that, so basically when something, the difficulty level and your skill level, when they're about the same, you're in a good place. You can handle what's coming at you. When you're just a little bit above, you're in a place where you're stretching yourself, but it's still good. When you're a little bit below, you're getting a chance to practice and, show, yes, I've mastered this. I'm getting to build confidence. But when you get way too low on the difficulty level and your skill level is just way too high, that's when we get bored and we stop paying attention and we give up because of boredom, not because we can't do it. And then when the difficulty is way above our skill level, that's when we get overwhelmed and I can't function. Everything's shutting off. It's all a surprise. I can't handle it. And I'm still, there's different ways that I'm still tweaking. I'm still understanding. But some of the things that are coming up is, first of all, as soon as you go into that place of everything's blowing up on me, I can't understand it. The first question is there a way that I can either increase my skill level or decrease the difficulty level? And of course, the first thing that comes up for that is, how do you eat an elephant? How do you eat a whale? That's come up many times of, one bite at a time. I'm not going to focus on this whole thing. I'm just going to ask myself, what is the next thing I need to do? And then also reminding yourself too, like, if the universe is putting this in my life, there must be a reason. And it isn't necessarily because I'm already supposed to be a master at it. I'm just going to do the best I can with the tools I have. And I'm also going to record everything I'm doing so that next time I come across this time I don't know, but next time I'm ready because I've already had this experience. One other thing that kind of pops up too is I had a friend that, see if I can put it, she put it so elegantly and I can't quite do justice to it, but just also periodically checking in and saying, what is the universe, how is the universe trying to get my attention? Source, God, whatever you want to call it, because she called it catching the problem at a higher plane. And it's the idea of if there's something in your life that you're not paying attention to, I think we all know it gets louder and louder and louder and louder. And so if we kind of have that commitment, I'm not the kind of person that needs the universe to make it as loud as possible for me to act. I want to act early, but it might be a little bit more subtle. So I'm periodically going to check in and ask the universe, hey, what is it that I'm not paying attention to right now that I'm ignoring that should be a high priority for me? And what would be the best way for me to proactively go after this so that I don't have to wait until it's reactive? So anyway, just a few things that are popping off the top of my head. And then I guess also too, just honoring your process, because if you're able to just do 10% of it, that's still 10% of it. You could do 10% of it tomorrow. It doesn't, some things we're going to master like that. And that's great. And it's wonderful and it's possible. But sometimes for whatever reason, we need to prove that we have the patience that we're willing to take it one step at a time. And that we're willing to see it through, even if it isn't going to clear just like that. And we're not going to beat ourselves up for it. So anyway, just a few things that are popping into my head at the moment.
That was,
Brilliant. Fabulous.
yeah, that was perfect, Holly. And it reminded me as well, because when Lenora was asking about identity, I was going to suggest asking the question, what have I been holding myself back from? And your statement sort of remind me of that.
And it also reminded me that I would like to challenge all of us, including myself, to get a brand new day planner with 1 day per page. And this is an exercise that I give pretty much to every one of my clients. Keep it by your bed every night. Write in a minimum of 3 cool things you remember from the day. They don't have to be massive. I like to say, it doesn't have to be like, oh my gosh, I got to watch a baby giraffe born under a double rainbow and duff flew up and glitter shot out. It can be something as cool as walking down the sidewalk and seeing a dandelion come up through a crack in the cement. And most people will be like, that's a flippin' weed. Yeah, well, that weed had to go through that much concrete to get to that much dirt to push up enough to show you a yellow flower. Some days, that's cool. And it retrains our brain to keep looking for and remembering all of the things around us that are cool. But the other thing that I want us to do is go to the end of the day planner to December 31st, 2023, and proclaim what we've accomplished and reverse engineer that through the day planner. What have we accomplished to get closer to who we're going to be at the end of 23? And set those goals inside of that day planner. Manifest those goals, look for ways that you can accomplish them, and add that into your nightly edition of, okay, finished step 1 today, and I'm 2 weeks ahead of schedule. Did we lock up again?
No, we're all nodding and just in complete agreement with it. That was awesome. Great suggestion.
Yeah, I think having a year's review of your successes was wonderful, written down. Just like the Z list at the end of my diary, I've probably spoken about Z list before, but all the things that you'd like to achieve that you've got no idea how it's going to happen. And you just make a list of them at the end of your diary. You're not allowed to look at them more than once a month, maybe once a month, but at the end of the year, you will see that so many things on your Z list that you thought were impossible at the beginning of the year are actually completed and achieved and were easy, because once it's written down, your unconscious mind is automatically going to steer you to find ways to achieve them without you even noticing, which is really cool. So please, everybody, make a Z list.
What do you call it? Oh, sorry, TJ.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, like, go ahead, Fran, explain Z list.
Z list is anything that you would like in your life. It covers absolutely all aspects of your life, things you'd like to achieve that you've got no idea how it's going to happen, whether it's buying a new house, whether it's moving to another state, whether it's winning $1 million or earning $1 million, whatever it is that you've got no idea how it's going to come about. And it can also be as small as, cleaning the car next week or whatever. It can be tiny or it can be huge. And if you just write it down, the act of writing it down and not going back to look at it every day, just knowing it's there, makes it come about. It really is magical. And it has to be that because it's written down and it's in the physical world on paper, that your unconscious mind thinks, okay, yes, we'll just find ways to do it. And you're not conscious of how it occurs, but the number of things I can cross off my list quite quickly after maybe a few months or by the end of the next year, it really is amazing, surprising. So if you want it, whether it's a beautiful pair of shoes or a designer dress or whatever, just write it down. Make this your I want list, and I'm willing to accept this list. I'm willing to accept this.
Awesome. I'm also going to challenge you guys at 23 to get better at questioning affirmations. Feed your subconscious with the questions that propel you forward. Write them around, leave little notes around your property and your car. Like my two favorites of what will I be grateful for today? Whose life will I improve even if I don't know about it?
I love that one.
Thank you. I've reflected on that one quite a bit. You know, sometimes, like I explained to a lot of my clients, sometimes improving somebody's life can simply be giving them a smile, because you don't know what people are going through. You don't know what their day's been like. Sometimes it's just, when you see somebody, look for ways to give them a compliment. And it's kind of sad in this day and age for us guys to give women a compliment. We almost have to do it on a flyby, so they don't think that we're trying to hit on them or anything like that. You see somebody coming and, hey, I love your hair, and you just keep walking, and they're like, did he just say that? Did he mean that? But that may be the one little thing that they just needed to hear at that moment.
That's wonderful. And I love that. And it kind of leads on to, I think it's really good if we can allow ourselves to go around in our world being open and vulnerable, even if it does mean that we may be open to the landmines going whack in your face that you don't expect. Because when you are open and vulnerable, you're able to relate with people at another level. And okay, it does make you vulnerable, and to be okay with being vulnerable, and to be okay with getting those slap in the faces occasionally. And so maybe I've answered my own question too.
oh, squirrel. We've got a couple of minutes left, but I got to share this story with you, because those of you that, I think it was last Triple T, will remember the quote. Last night, my wife and I were heading back to the Airbnb, and I wanted to top off with fuel and trying to find this place. And lo and behold, red light, and we look over, and oh, there it is right next to us, but we were a car length behind the entrance. Light turns green, so we start moving forward, and because I was right next to it, I didn't see the curb, turned a little too short, bumped over the curb, and as I'm pulling up to the pump, the guy on the other side of the pump filling his car has this big cheesy grin, da 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 da, and I look at him, and the first thought in my mind was, yeah, he saw me, you know, driving like a bozo and hitting the curb. So I get out, and he's still grinning, looking at me, and he goes, "This pump's making a really cool beat. It's kind of fun to dance to." And I looked at him, and I was like, "That is so cool." And I said, "You know what? I teach my clients and my students stuff like this." And I said, "You just reminded me of a quote that the happiest people find the beauty on the detour." And he stopped for a little bit. He processed it, and he goes, "Oh yeah. Oh no, I see cool stuff everywhere." And I said, "Of course you do. You're the person who's standing here filling up your car, and you hear this beat coming out of the fuel pump, and instead of thinking it's annoying, you're like, that's kind of a groovy beat." And he goes, "Wow, thank you for pointing that out." I said, "Thank you for being that kind of person, because you're the kind of people I like to be around." It was just one of those cool little moments in time where it was just like, wow, you know, he didn't even
That's so
notice.
cute.
Yeah, it's just got a funky little beat. So, and that brings us up to the top of the second hour and to the close of Triple T episode 52 in 2022. What a awesome, unique way. Thank you for letting me finish it off doing 80 miles an hour. Yes, that's the speed limit here for those of you that are freaking out. We're doing the speed limit 80 miles an hour down the freeway in Texas with you guys spread out all over the planet. For those of you watching the live feed, for those of you watching the recordings, thank you, thank you, thank you. Throw in the
Congratulations for reaching 52 episodes. Yay.
Who'd have thunk it?
Completely agree. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is so exciting.
Well, the next one will be episode 53 in 2023. Who do you want to be? I am so looking forward to spending my time with you guys next year. And for all that you give back to me, I want you to know it's so worth it. And I don't even have the vocabulary to tell you how much I appreciate all of you here live on the recording, all the above, anybody that's been associated with my journey. Thank you. And I'm going to say thank you to my amazing wife, who is constantly supporting me and adding, going, "Hey, what about this for Triple T?" and giving me quotes and stuff. So, yeah, what an awesome way to help close down this year, and look forward to seeing you guys next year.
See
Have
you
an
next
awesome
year.